Are you struggling to rank up in Marvel Rivals, or do you feel like the ranked game mode is too intimidating for you? Here are some quick and easy tips to get around this. The first tip we're going to be talking about is Hero Pool. Now this tip is mainly directed to players who haven't played a game like this before. With over 33 heroes to choose from, it could be quite overwhelming for a new player. And sometimes when you load into your match, your character that you want to play is already locked in. So sometimes it can be rather frustrating. And to get around that frustration, you have to open up your hero pool. Now I highly encourage you to pick between 2 to 3 heroes per role and master them. You don't necessarily need to play every single character in the game, and having 2 to 3 characters per role is always better than one, so that if your first pick is taken, well, you always have a backup plan. Now another thing I highly encourage you to do is have some type of adaptability. For a generic example, you should have 1 hero per role you can flex to if your main pick gets countered. Say that you're playing Storm or Iron Man or any of the flying characters, and the enemy team decides to go Hela or Punisher or any other hit scan character. And if you don't know what hit scan means, I'm referring to a system where a projectile is considered to hit a target instantly. So basically the second you shoot, it hits the enemy player. Typically hard characters to flying heroes. And if you don't know what characters to pick for certain roles, let me give you some recommendations. For my first tank recommendation, I highly encourage you to look at the hero Magneto. He has a relatively straightforward kit. His primary attack fires a volley of magnetic orbs that explode on impact and deals damage. So again, pretty straightforward. Now for his secondary fire, you see these 3 arrows in the middle of your screen? Well, this is for his secondary fire. The more arrows or stacks or charges you have lined up, the more damage you're gonna do. If all 3 of these arrows are full, then the player you hit gets knocked back. Now his left shift, and apologies, I'm not sure what it is on controller, is a shield, and it blocks all incoming projectiles for a certain duration. Then he has 2 shields. Then he has the option to choose from 2 shields, one to give to his ally or one to give to himself. Most of the time these shields are super situational based, and most often than not I recommend you placing the shield on one of your dive DPS if they're trying to dive, or place it on one of your healers if they're getting dived, for example. And these dive DPS are characters that dive into the enemy's backline. Characters like Black Panther, Psylocke, Spider-Man, things like that. Now his ultimate is also rather good. You draw in materials around to create a iron meteor. If you're in a big team fight, I recommend popping this because the more enemy projectiles that are fired increases your damage that you're going to be doing with your ultimate. Now he is labeled as a 2-star difficulty, but I think he's more labeled as a 1. Because honestly, if you have no idea what you're doing as Magneto and you just pop your shield on yourself on your teammates and ult every so often, then you're still being pretty useful. Although this statement is very debatable, he's a very easy tank to pick up if you're just starting out. But what happens if Magneto get picks? What's your fallback plan? The first thing to note is that you have a Magneto on your team, so you have a shield tank. Although you could pick a character like Doctor Strange to have another shield on your team, I recommend for choosing something like an off tank. A tank like Venom is definitely a character I would look at. Although he's labeled as a 1-star difficulty, he could be a little more challenging. He's more like a person that goes in and harasses the enemy team. Rather than blocking for your team like Magneto or Doctor Strange, your whole playstyle as Venom is to go into the enemy's backline and just be a nuisance. You're trying to be the most annoying person that the enemy team has ever seen. More annoying than your neighbors who decide to mow their lawn at 8 in the morning on a Saturday. But anyways, Venom's abilities are as followed. His primary attack is a close burst damage attack. You unleash your tentacles to attack close range enemies. Your best course of action to actually land these hits is to literally be melee range. Although there is a little bit of distance, I just recommend you being in their face. His alternate fire is what makes his primary attack very strong. His alternative fire is as followed. You unleash tentacles to slow enemies within reach. Enemies unable to break free in time will suffer damage. Now typically this is what you do. You jump into a large group of enemies, perform your secondary attack so all of them get tethered and slowed. From there, start using your primary attack to output damage to everybody. Pretty self-explanatory. Now the most essential part of his kit is Venomous Swing. This is where you swing around the map with insane movement. Now this ability might seem intimidating at first, but it's actually relatively easy to use. Firstly, I recommend you to go into your settings, select Venom, scroll down to Easy Swing and turn that off. Once disabled, you get to choose where you want to swing from. If you have it on, it will automatically swing you from the closest object, but we don't want that. Disabling this feature just gives you a lot more fluidity of where you can move. Now while you're in the air swinging around, this is where you use one of your initiate abilities. Titled Frenzied Arrival, you dash to a targeted location from a height. Upon landing, you damage nearby enemies and launching them up into the air. Now continuing how you play him. So you're going to start out swinging with a venomous swing, looking for enemy combatants, then using your ability button to land on people with the frenzied arrival, which knocks them up. While they're knocked up, or if they're close enough, you pop your secondary attack, which, tethers everyone and slows them. From there, you're just holding down your primary fire, left clicking everybody. This is all a rather straightforward combo. Now the cool thing is, if you're taking a lot of damage when you land in, all you have to do is press your other ability, Symbiotic Resilience, and this turns any of Venom's lost HP into shield or extra HP or however you want to describe it. The more HP you lose, the more shield you're going to get. So most often to not, try to wait till your HP is relatively low, then use it. This allows you to survive for a little bit longer and get out of pretty sticky situations. Now his ultimate is Feast of the Abyss. You burrow underground, free of movement. After a duration or pressing your primary attack whenever, you devour enemies, and you deal damage based on the enemy's HP. And you also generate equivalent bonus health to yourself. So if you're really low on HP and you already used your shield ability, this is when I recommend trying to go into your ulti and getting more HP back. But like I said, as he is a 1-star difficulty, he could still be a little bit challenging. But those are my 2 tank recommendations to play for Marvel Rivals. But what about the DPS characters? Who do you recommend? Now there are some pretty cool DPS characters to choose from, characters like Psylocke or Hawkeye or anything like that, but I would stay away from those characters until you fully understand how the game works. Characters like Punisher, Namor, or if you're really confident in your aiming, I would pick a character like Hela. All these characters are relatively straightforward of what their abilities do. There's nothing really too complex with the characters I mentioned. Now, most of the time it's not necessarily who you pick to play in ranked, but a lot of the times it's actually based on things like positioning. But I'll have more on that later. Now let's talk about what kind of support character do I recommend. Now when I choose a healer in hero-based shooters like Overwatch or Marvel Rivals, most of the time when I pick healers, I usually want to pick the same characteristics that other roles have. Or not necessary roles, but your playstyle. Things like movement can be a big part of why you choose one healer or not. Now, if you're picking a hero in Marvel Rivals for the first time, I would try to stay away from characters like Cloak and Dagger, or a character like Mantis. These characters have a lot more micromanaging than other healers in this game, so if you don't want to overwhelm yourself right off the start, I would recommend choosing from these other characters. A healer like Jeff is a very straightforward healer. He's only a 1-star difficulty, with his left click literally being a hose of water that heals. His right click is a projectile damage AoE. He throws bubbles on the ground that you can run over, pick up, and it heals you, and it gives you a slight speed boost. He can go under the ground for quick escapes, and his ultimate is relatively good. But if Jeff is already locked in, who do you pick? A character like Rocket Raccoon is a pretty straightforward healer as well. Your left click is a projectile machine gun, or plasma gun, whatever you want to call it. His right click is healing bouncing balls that speed up when there's no allies near it, can bounce off walls, and when allies are by it, they slow down and heal teammates. Pretty straightforward. He can rocket dash from point A to point B. He can climb on walls. The only thing that you have to keep in mind is that you always want to be throwing down your E ability whenever you can. This ability provides your teammates shields or a jump boost, and it revives one of them, so it's extremely useful. His ultimate gives everyone on your team within an area a damage boost, but it's also something that can be destroyed, so I recommend it putting behind some type of cover. But if both of those characters are picked, or if you don't feel like playing either of those, Luna Snow is also a really good pick. She's another really straightforward character. Her primary attack heals allies and also deals damage to enemies if you hit them. Then her left shift disempowers essentially her primary attack. Her secondary fire fires a clump of ice that stuns people or freezes them. She has a out of combat passive that gives her increased move speed. Then her ultimate is Dance Dance Revolution, where you can swap between healing and a damage boost, so pretty straightforward. Now, some more quick tips to rank up in Marvel Rivals is honestly communication. Communication is key in any, tactical shooter. Or not necessarily tactical shooter, but hero shooter per se. See, a lot of people don't use voice chat for whatever reason. Voice chat in a lot of my ranked matches have single-handedly won the match. Whether that just be from calling out enemy locations, ults, and maybe even focusing targets. But honestly, even just keeping it positive, trying to keep the morale up so people aren't discouraged or anything like that. It can also be pretty useful to know. Honestly, I'm not really sure why, as I was, going through the ranks, no one was ever really talking. I'm not necessarily sure if it's people being shy or if it's people that have super high egos that think they're better than everyone and don't want to talk to anybody. But that's just me. Now let's talk about our team composition. So typically you want to match your role. Most of the time as a tank, these are your primary objectives. Protect your team, contest space, and lead engagements. For DPS, your whole goal is to focus on eliminating the squishy players, pressuring supports, or dealing shield damage or anything like that. And for healing or supports, it's self-explanatory. Prioritize healing your tank and keeping DPS alive during fights. Now there's one thing that makes Marvel Rivals super unique, and it's the synergy. Now most of the time in hero shooters or characters that, have a tank, you typically build your team comp around said tank. But in Marvel Rivals, you have the team up abilities. You typically want to play team comps that have really good team up abilities. Things like if you have a Jeff on your team, you might want to go, Groot, or even if Rocket Raccoon is also on your team, you could also go Groot. All of these team ups provide very diverse team comps that can be pretty strong sometimes. So I definitely encourage you when you're picking your characters, see who you can team up with and let your teammates know if they want to play the other character. Now another tip I see a lot of people glance over or leave out is ultimate management. With ultimate management, you typically don't want to stack ults unnecessarily. Always try to prioritize ultimates that can really combo well together. For example, if you have a Moon Knight and a Groot, typically you want to stack their ultimates together. Groot's ultimate keeps people in place, while Moon Knight's ultimate has a large damaging AoE. Comboing these two together could instantly win you a team fight in a second. Then something to watch out for is that you want to track enemies' ultimates. If they use them, things like that. And another major tip is use your ults decisively in key fights, not when your fight is already lost. If you're already down 2 players and it's a 4v6, there is no reason why you need to be ulting, unless you're 100% confident you ulting could turn the fight. If you're not 100% confident, don't use your ultimate. Pretty self-explanatory. Now another thing that I see glanced over a lot is positioning. Positioning is crucial in a game like Marvel Rivals. Avoid overextending. If you're alone, you're easy pickings. You always want to probably stay with your team, unless you're some character that has a ton of movement or a ton of escape. If you're not one of those characters, then you should probably be sticking with your team. Because Marvel Rivals is a third-person shooter that's over the right shoulder, using high ground gives a better angles and reduces your risk of getting hit. As well as playing around cover, always have a place to hide. Pretty self-explanatory. Now again, it's over the right shoulder, so you can position yourself next to a left wall or something like that, so you can corner peek or anything like that. Third person gives you a whole bunch of opportunities to use jiggle peeking or corner peeking, things like that. Now something that I encourage you to do is try to learn flanking routes, health pack locations, and choke points for each map. Knowing these routes can easily help you to gain an advantage. But then you should also adapt to the map mode. For example, you play poke heroes on long range based maps. Pretty self-explanatory. Because characters like Spider-Man, Psylocke, Black Panther are very highly picked, you should always be aware of who's lurking around. Now for my final thoughts or final tips for Marvel Rivals Ranked, one of them being is try to stay calm and focused. Look, ranked can be stressful and try to avoid tilting. Something you should be aware of is that instead of always blaming others, you can't control your team, but you can control how you play. So sometimes even though you want to blame your teammates, it might not even be their fault. I recommend if you really care about ranked, before you start playing, warm up a bit, spend 10 to 15 minutes or whatever. And a bonus tip, if you really want to get good at Marvel Rivals, I would watch VODs or pro players or anything like that. You could use this to analyze your own gameplay and compare, or just watch professional players on heroes you main to learn positioning and stuff like that. What you're trying to do is essentially focus on gradual improvement. But anyways, hopefully this video helped you out in any way, shape, or form. Of course, subscribe if you're new, like the video if you liked it. This video is backed by good intentions, hopefully to help players rank up in Marvel Rivals Ranked. But anyways, like always, I hope you have a great day, and well, I'll catch you in the next one.